welcome everybody. So, I know we should be starting now, but it looks like it's just so fascinating to see the crowd from all across the world be tuning into this, and I kind of want to stick around with the chat box to continue seeing the world, but but I think it's time we started. Hello, I can't say good evening. It's going to be good evening and good morning, and hello to everybody, whatever time zone you're in. We're very happy you're joining us today. This is a very special night. It's the second episode of a series that we're calling Facing the Tiger, Unleashing the Human Spirit at Work. And it's a series of webinars with John Scherer. I don't think John needs any introduction, but let me just say he is he's the father of OD in Poland, that's for sure. I think he is the first man that's ever spoke about organizational development in Poland. He's also an expert in leadership development, organizational change, an author of many books. And his latest book, or a new edition of his latest book, is coming out. When is that, John? Now? Soon? Any day now?
Well, Dorota can probably give you more, probably 2 to 3 weeks. We're working on getting the forward and some videos.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to that, and we'll keep you posted with that. And the plan for tonight.
Aggie, say something about yourself. Aggie, say something about yourself quickly, like, because people don't know who you are and what your connection is here.
Well, so as you've probably noticed, John calls me Aggie. My name is Agata Chelarska. I'm one of John's colleagues. We work together, helping organizations become more effective. I'm one of the facilitators at the Leadership Development Intensive seminar that we are sadly now have on hold most of the time because of COVID situation. I've worked with John for about 10 years, or maybe even more right now. And it's a great honor to, to be hosting this webinar with you tonight. And the topic of the webinar today, and I love this topic because we have talked about this so many times in the past, and I love the fact that you've invited me to co-host this because it's so true for everybody. I mean, it's like, it doesn't matter. I see we have, management and pastors and God knows who else tuning into this. And this is a topic that anybody in the world can relate to because it's about work and it's about your relationship with work. I just think it's so fascinating and so true and relevant to anybody joining us here tonight. So very excited to jump in. Before we do, though, I want to talk a little bit about the plan for tonight, the agenda. So John is going to walk us through a few slides and a few concepts and a few ideas. While he's doing that, we're inviting you to use the chat box as much as possible. Be posting any questions, comments, thoughts, reflections as this happens, and we'll do our best to kind of feed some of them into this webinar so that it's not just a one person towards you, but it's more of a conversation. So please feel free to use that as much as possible. So John is going to talk to us about the concept of work and our relationship with work for about 30 minutes or so. And then again, we're going to try and turn it over to you, and we'll ask you to post more questions and comments, and John will host a little Q&A session and a discussion. So that's the plan. The whole thing is scheduled to last about an hour. We're not really good with that. I don't think we've ever.
we did pretty well last time.
I don't think I've ever ended anything that I've done with John on time, just because, time flies when you're having fun and you just get so engaged and involved. It's really hard to stop these things. But yeah, that's the plan. So let's get this party started. John, over to you.
Thanks, Aggie. Boy, it would be so great to be in a room together in a space where we could see each other. It's so much, to read your faces. It's so hard to be doing this, talking about things that are really deep in me and dear to me with people that are dear to me, and not be able to see your faces. I was exhausted after the last episode, after the last webinar. I couldn't figure out why. Because normally I'm energized by this work, my goodness, this point in my life. And I realized that what was different was usually when I'm in a room, it's like when I played in the rock band, or a magic, you put out energy and the audience gives you energy back. So it's a circle of energy. And in a webinar, it's all going out. And I feel like I'm throwing darts in the dark. I have no idea what's happening out there. So the chat box is really, really helpful. Okay, well, let's get going because this is a really important topic for me. I hope I can master this thing here. Let's get going. Okay. What does work mean to you? Life, is the first thing we get when we show up here. We get a life. Nobody gets the same life. It isn't like you get issued a life when you get here. In fact, I hope to do a webinar on this soon, but we're enrolled in a program, a training program, the minute we're born, about what it means to have a life, what kind of life to have. And then we have work. I'm going to ask you some questions about these, but at birth, you have your early childhood. That's when life begins to mean something. It's like, I'm alive. What the heck? What does that mean? What does it mean to be alive? And there's what this spiritual teacher, Ram Dass, called somebody training. Love this topic. I definitely want to do a webinar on this, that when we're born, we're automatically enrolled in a somebody training program where we're in training to become somebody. And our faculty are all the people around us and so on. And it's not just to become any somebody, but a particular kind of somebody, the kind of person you're supposed to be and the kind of person we're not supposed to be. So you think back to those early years, those first 5 or 6 years, who was around you? Parents, grandparents, teachers, cousins, maybe you had a different kind of childhood. Who was on your faculty? What did you learn about what kind of, in this life, who are you supposed to be and who are you not supposed to be? What were the fundamental principles that you learned? I mean, I can remember growing up in the parsonage of my grandfather, who was a Lutheran pastor in Richmond, Virginia. And I figured out by the time I was 5 or 6 years old that my mission in life was to be a good boy, And some of those fundamental things are still with us, no matter how we go. So life begins to take on a life. Life begins to come alive. And then something called work shows up. It's fascinating to me that in the biblical account of creation, work is a curse. Adam and Eve are just having fun all the time. And then bang, you made me mad, so I'm going to make you work. And I think that's a real shame because, as you'll see, my philosophy of work is very different. So the first memory of work, what was your first memory of work? Like, how old were you when you had to do stuff? I remember chores around the house, like putting dishes away, 5 or 6 years old, helping to do stuff when there was a meal, where to put the napkins. And this is Richmond, Virginia, so where you put the napkins and the silverware is very, very important. But what were your earliest memories about work? When did you have to do stuff? And then school, 5, 6, 7 years old, there was schoolwork. And then eventually it was homework. And I mean, I remember this, I don't know what your faculty taught you about work, but I remember hearing things like, get your chores done and then you can play. Like, you can't play until your work is done. Or have you done your homework? Have you done your homework? I mean, that kind of thing. So the attitude about work in your growing up years, what was it? What were your early images of work? Okay. And then what was your first job? I mean, I was a magician when I was 11 or 12 years old. I did magic shows for birthday parties. I remember I did this birthday party for this woman I was like 12 years old or something, and she gave me a $10 bill. Now, this is 1955, so that's big money, right? She gave me this $10 bill, and I went home and I asked her, I said, what is this for? And she said, well, it's for the magic show. So I went home and I said, look, Mom, this lady gave me $10. She said, son, now you're a professional. And so, I mean, I realized that was a job, my first job, but it was so much fun. I couldn't believe I got paid for doing magic shows. I feel that way about what I'm doing now. Most of the things I've done in my life, I would do for free, if I had to. So, but my first job was actually, I was a camp counselor in the summer, and a waterfront director at a YMCA camp and stuff like that. But right after graduation from college, my first job was working in a gas station, a filling station. I was waiting to go to officer candidate school. I had about 4 months, and so I had to do something. What was your first job? The first job where somebody was expecting you to do stuff in exchange for something, money or something like that. And what did you learn from that first work experience? I remember fixing tires, and I was pretty good with an automobile and getting my hands all greasy and everything. And of course, in those days, you go out to the car, wash the windows, fill up the tank. It was like customer service and everything. And that's kind of what that was like. And then what's your current work? One of you guys is retired, or several of you. What does that mean? A few years ago, I had my 75th birthday in Krakow. I don't know if you were at that party, Aggie, but and people put me in a circle and asked me, Yannick, how long are you going to stay in Poland? And I said, well, as long as I'm needed. And they said, well, why have you stayed so long? And I looked around and I saw the circle of faces, and I started to get really emotional. And I said, I see dear friends and clients. I said, you've become my tribe. So my work is happening inside of this community here. And then I said, but I have an announcement to make. Tonight, I'm going to retire. And they really got upset with me. They really got ticked off. And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm going to retire. I'm going to put new tires on the car so I can go another 100,000 kilometers. So and so I'm still working, whatever that means. What are you doing now? Think about it. If somebody said, what is your work? How would you answer that question? And then as we get into this, and what is the relationship between work and life? First, let's take a look at where the word work, me, how I love words. Where does the word work? What is work? It comes from the Greek erg. If any of you in physics remember your physics, it's a measure. How many calories of energy does it take to move 1 gram, 1 centimeter, assuming a certain amount of friction? So it's energy moving something. And then it went into the old German and became from erg, it went to Werk, which is output from some kind of energy that is spent. So as it comes down to us now, you can think of it as energy with a vector, energy with an intended direction or with an intended outcome. Something is it's energy spent with an intention in mind. So that's work. Everything else is whatever we make up about it. All right. So here we go. So what is the relationship between life and work for you? Like if they were two people, right? We do this in our LDI sometimes. Would they be friends? Which one has more status? Which one has more, who usually wins? If there's any kind of competition between them, are they enemies? Are they friends? Do they spend time together? Are they separate? Like, do they live in different houses? Do they visit occasionally? Really think about that. And if you want to write something in the chat box about that'd be great. Like, what's the relationship? If these two were characters, what's the nature of their relationship, right? So here we go. Here's some options. Here's your work, here's life, and oh yeah. We see this all the time, don't we, Aggie? We do our leadership intensives. We have a solo version and we have a group version. And I don't know what the percentages are, but this is a very, very high percentage of men and women we've had now people from 50 countries, do this program. So it's not a national, cultural, regional thing. This seems to be I've done it in Asia. We've done it in Africa. We've done it in all across Canada, New Zealand, Europe, everywhere. We've had people from Russia, all different countries. And this is how it is. I have work, and then I try to have a life, but they're really not. In fact, an interesting thing In America, the first version of our leadership program was for executive couples, actually. Because when you're doing deep work about this kind of stuff, the nature of work and life, many people in America want their spouse to be there. I mean, how could you not have your spouse there? But in this part of the world, I think we've had one couple, because here it's like, well, why would I want to talk to my husband or my wife about my work? And so that part is kind of a regional thing, but the separation is all around the world. Other people have a life and they go, well, I guess I need to work. So be thinking about, where are you? What's your nature here? Here's another possibility. I have a life, and yeah, I try to fit my work into my life. It's not totally separate. I want to make it as much as I can. There's something outside. It's like a Venn diagram. Or work absorbs me like crazy, and I do my very best to try to have some kind of life. So be thinking about which one of these is more like it is for you. If you were going to draw these circles, how would you draw them? How big would they be? What would be how would you, just as a kind of a right brain exercise, a right brain way of thinking about these. All right. So this is where I would stop if we were in a room. And let me see if I can do this without totally blowing everything here. So at least my face, I just want to talk to you. So.
Well, we've had some great comments in the chat box here.
You got, Maggie? Can you read me a couple?
Sure. So first of all, people are sharing their early jobs, and it looks
maybe just first names, okay? So we don't out anybody.
Well, I think everybody can see the chat box. So,
okay, right. Sorry.
Well, it looks like Michael has had about 50 jobs as his early jobs. Wow. Some people are, when you ask for the comparison, somebody here says that the work and life used to be enemies, but now since they've retired, this is Giovanni, they've become friends.
Oh, great, Bonnie. I'm so glad to hear that.
Super. Yeah. And then
Adrian, if I could say something to Michael, with the 50 jobs, Michael, do you notice any themes in those jobs? Like in the book, I write about all the jobs that I had, all the work that I did from being a camp counselor all the way to what I'm doing now. And I realized, even in the Navy, even as a combat officer in the Navy, I realized that the way I was viewing what I was there for was to try to help the people around me develop. And so that's the theme. It's like no matter whose logo was on the paycheck, that seems to be. I wonder if you see any themes like that as you look back across your life. What else, Aggie? What else have you got?
What is it in your jobs? I can relate to what Mike said, because I think as a teenager I've had a number of jobs, and they were very different, like going from working to a movie theater and to being an assistant at a urologist office, completely different jobs. And at the same time, I think there was a calling inside of me that was active, or that was present in each of those jobs, and it was about improving things and making things happen, and making people enjoy things, and things like that. So there is a pattern if you think about it.
Something like that. Yeah.
Michael says the theme for him is service. Yeah.
Mike, that's it. Mike's a buddy ever since I've known him 40 years. That's definitely true.
And Adrian here from, I think Adrian was from Austria, but I don't remember. Adrian Wagenaar says, work is my big warm coat that sometimes itches.
Oh, what a great metaphor. I love it. And I saw where Dan said he grew up on a farm, and he was in one of my programs recently, and still is, and had some things to say. What you learn on a farm. I mean, boy, the sun and the sun and the moon determine what your life is like. Like in the Navy, the first thing I did when I woke up in the morning on our ship was check the condition of the ocean, because it determined a lot of what we were going to be able to do during the day. When you go to work in an office, it's all same. You don't have to deal with that. But on the farm or on the water, boy, it's a big difference. Let's get one more, Aggie. What else do you see? And then I want to go forward.
Somebody says work as child-friendly Batman and life as Robin the Boy Wonder.
I love it. These are such great metaphors. That's great. Oh, very cool. Oh, Dobry Stojic. What do you want to say there, buddy? He just raised his hand.
And then Neil says, work is not work in the traditional sense if one enjoys it.
That's what Mark Twain said. If you love what you do, you never work another day in your life.
Yep.
All right. Let me go back to what a few thoughts here. These are great. I'm so glad this seems to be working here. Just a second here. I'm slowly mastering the technology. He said, hopefully. All right. Here we go. Now, this is from Mike Murray, who just spoke a couple minutes ago. Mike, thank you for this. I know we tried years ago to figure out where it came from, and we couldn't figure out who to give credit to. I love to give attribution. But these are 5 different, I would say, levels of meaning. I don't want to say that one is better than the other, but they're different. They're very different. And so the first level of work is work as mission. Okay? Like this comes from, I mean, you know how I love words, comes from the Latin mittere, which became missere, the S's took over, and then it became missio in the Latin, which became the mission, the noun, and it's a verb that means to send. So people on a mission feel like they're sent. They've been sent. In fact, many of these words I found out as I went through this have kind of theological, orientation here. So here we go. Be the change. Be the change you want to make. Mother Teresa, great story about this magazine reporter was visiting her center in Lahore, India, and there were people banging on the gates at night, and one of the sisters came in and said, "Mother, come to the gate, we have a problem." So this magazine reporter went to the gate, and there were people pushing to get in the gate, so they got the door shut and locked. And they were walking back across the courtyard, and I guess the magazine reporter said, "Mother Teresa, I can't believe I just saw this. You locked those people out. I thought you were here to take care of those people." And she said, "If my sisters and I don't come in here every night to rest and pray, this place will be closed in 3 days." So having a mission doesn't mean you're type A, driver. You'll see the last person is kind of close to that, but it means something more than that. Martin Luther King, he said, "I have a dream." I would say he was the dream. I am the dream. He would never say that, but I am a dream for many, many people here. And then of course there's this guy. And you might say that if you read his bio, he definitely drove a lot of people, but he sure felt like he was a man on a mission, I'd say. So when your life and your work are overlapping like this, those people would say, "My life is my work, and my work is my life." And I felt like that. I mean, I've been single for about 12 years or so. And I wake up into my work, I go to sleep thinking about my work, but it doesn't live like work for me. They really overlap quite a bit. So that's the first level, work as mission. Next, work as vocation, which comes from the Latin vocare, which is to call. So if you feel like you have a vocation, it's something that you've been called to. You're answering a call. I like to use the metaphor of the volunteer fire department. In America, and it's also true here in Europe, probably around the world. In a small town where you don't have a fire department, you have like a volunteer fire department. And when the siren goes off, everybody in town hears the siren, but some hear it as a call to action. And so what is it? What is the sound in the world? There's noise everywhere. What is that sound that you hear, that you're called? Like when the Twin Towers got hit. Those guys and gals just went. They just went. They went toward those towers. They didn't run away. They went toward. They were called to action. What is it like that calls you to action? What are situations in the world that just call out to you?
I mean, think of all the medical care today, first responders these days.
Absolutely. I mean, you can be a school teacher. You can have any kind of a job and feel called to it. In fact, there's a great talk by Martin Luther King to the street sweepers, I think in Mobile, Alabama. It's one of his sermons. And he says, "Sweep those streets as if God is going to walk on those streets." I mean, there's this sense of elevating the work. So it's not just the work, but it's something else. You're being called to something. These are the 3 medieval vocations, typically theology, medicine, and the law. But as Aggie says, you can be called whatever you're doing. You can be in it as You can feel it as if it's a call. Okay, here's level 3. Work as profession, professing, from professio, which means to declare openly, to teach, to make public something that is important to you. And so you usually, there's an association for people in that profession. You can have people who are teaching as a profession, IT programming, real estate, I mean, accounting, acting, Lisa. Now, you know, this is belonging to a group of people who, you know, in the old days, all the bricklayers, all the stonemasons, you know, they had these clubs that they were part of, guilds that they were part of. It means belonging to a profession. And in many situations, like I've consulted to some universities and to some organizations where the loyalty that people have is not to the university as so much as to their colleagues in their biology or physics or whatever their field is. Think of how many physics stories you've heard about physicists communicating with other physicists, and they almost don't even care about the administration of the college or anything like that. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm saying sometimes your profession is what drives you. What you're called to is to become better and better and better at your profession. Yeah. Okay. Level 4, work as occupation first. So, and this is from occupation, which means to be taken over. You occupy a country, you occupy something. So it means that your life, your energy is in a sense being taken over by something for a certain time, a certain period during the day or during your life. So you're being occupied by, how do you occupy your time, we would say. And you can have these same activities that you're doing can live in you like an occupation. This is what I do. I'm taken over during the day by this or that. I'm flying a plane, or I'm on stage, I'm doing something, I'm selling real estate, I'm teaching, whatever. But it lives in you as something that's currently occupying your time. Now there's another level, which is job. It's a job. I have a job. It comes from the Old English gob, which means a lump of something. And in the old days, it was you were paid by how many lumps, how many gobs you moved from point A to point B. You know, this is what a job is. And I always tell people, if you have a job, quit your job, find your work, find your werk. Okay, but that's another possibility. But there's one more. I love this last one. Work is interruption. So, and this is from interrubbere, again, the Latin word, which means to disturb or confuse. So when work is an interruption, think about the surfer dude. You know, really, do I have to work? Well, I got to eat. You know what I'm saying? I got to do something to make it through the world. So it's interrupting my day. My life is something else, but, you know, I guess I got to work. Homemakers, you'd much rather, you know, maybe you'd rather be with the kids, but work is an interruption to this thing you'd rather be doing. Artists of any kind, actors, actresses, you know, all my kids are in the arts, you know.
Travelers, I would add travelers.
Absolutely. People that just, I mean, think of all the things where a job, so to speak, would be an interruption to your day. Okay, so here we go. So here are the 5 levels here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what I'd like you to do in the chat box.
John, before we go there, can I just
Yeah.
We have a question here from Giovanni, and I think which was about understanding the difference between level 1 and level 2, so a mission and a vocation.
Great. Yeah, I wish this was scientific, Vonnie, but it isn't. I think somebody who has a vocation doesn't have their entire life swallowed up. Like as a pastor, when I was called to the ministry, I've been called now to this work. I mean, I have other things in my life that are important to me. I don't know whether Gandhi, you know, had a hobby. I don't think he did model trains or, you know, played tennis or anything like that. Or I don't think Mother Teresa, you know, had hobbies. I don't even think Steve Jobs had a hobby. So it's like mission is like everything. I don't know.
Work is life when it's a mission.
Exactly. It's on a scale, asymptotic, you know, kind of thing. So where are you on here? This is for the chat room. I want you to put down 2 numbers, a number and then a dash. A number where you are now, and it might be 1.5, you know, we're not going to get scientific here. And then where would you like it to be? It might be the same. Maybe you're a 3 and it's just fine. Maybe it's a 4 and you'd like it to be a 1 or a 5. So just play with these numbers now. Where is it now? And a dash, and then the number where you'd like it to be. Let's just take a minute and let this happen.
Sorry, I was muted just to give you an example.
You're noticing, yeah.
Great. Great. So, huge variety. 1s, 2s, 3s. Some
Wow.
people are saying they're great where they are. 2.5,
Yeah.
happy there.
Great. Fabulous.
2 and 1, 3 and 2, 4 to 1. Nick is at 4. Would like to be at 1.
Well, there's some downsides to 1 and 2, but
Yep.
bless your heart.
Well, I said I'm at 1 and I'd like to be at 2. So, great.
I would too, come to think of it.
Yep.
I'm about a 1.5. I don't know, Aggie and Dorota, some of the rest of you could probably, Aditya could tell me what you
I would
noticed.
say you're 1.9.
1.9. Okay. 1.935. We'll go at a
No,
couple.
I'm sorry. I was going to say 0.9, actually.
0.9. Oh, okay.
0.9.
Yeah, closer to that. Okay, so this is just what I want to do here is just get you thinking about this. Just give you some left brain and some right brain ways of kind of playing with these really, really important things. And I mean, some of you in here, I know are millennials or close to millennials, and some of you are like, like me and Mike and some other people here, got a lot of long in the tooth, I don't think it's ever, what is that saying? It's never too late to be what you might have been. So, all right, so let's go. So we did that, so let's keep going here. This is the third and final thing I want to talk with you about. This is a fabulous phrase from Sanskrit. Those of you that know me know I've been doing yoga virtually every day for, I don't know, 40 or 50 years. And the first time I heard it and heard what it meant, it just went right, like that. Seva as sadhana. Your seva is your work. Washing dishes, taking care of the kids, convening meetings, strategic planning, consulting, medicine, whatever, firefighter, teacher, whatever that stuff was, whatever it was, that's your seva. It's what do you do all day from the time you get up till the time you go to bed. Even the surfer has seva. Everybody has seva. You got to clean your board. You got to catch the wave. You might be artists. What do you do all day? People that don't understand artists, I got a family full of them, don't really, why? They're just wasting their time. Boy, my daughter's an actress. Lisa, you know what this is like. I'm telling you, man, I see how exhausted it can be to be an actor and what work it takes to take on a character, someone else, and to just empty yourself and let that character come and be in you and express. It's unbelievable. It really is incredible. So seva is what you do. It's your action in the world. Sadhana is something that happens inside. Sadhana is your spirit in the yoga tradition, is your spiritual practice, your spiritual tradition. Okay. It sees work as deep development or even as a spiritual practice. Like, what if, this great saying from T.S. Eliot, everyone gets the experience, some get the lesson. So like COVID, okay? We're all having the experience. We don't get to vote on that. What's the lesson here? How is this an opportunity? It's work means a time and place where I can practice being and becoming all of who I am. Now this gets, this may be too weird for some of you, but I like to think that we were sent here with an assignment. We might do something on this later, or we showed up, and it's just a concept. We have an assignment. Continue to develop yourself fully into the best you can be. Second, express that into the world as fully and as freely as you can. 3, in a way that contributes to life. So work is a place where you can practice getting better at that. Okay. So this guy, Tim Galway, he and I were given a workshop together to a group of young YPOs. And This is a bunch of CEOs who was up in Wisconsin some years ago. And he's a tennis champion, tennis guru, fabulous guy. He wrote a book called The Inner Game of Tennis. And the way he got started was he was playing. I went to UCLA or somewhere, university in California, and he was in the national championship, and he had match point against his opponent. So all he had to do was hit this next shot, and he would be the champion tennis player in America, the collegiate champion. And as he tells the story, this other guy hit this wounded duck, they call it, just kind of fluttering over the net. And he said, anybody in this room could have made the shot. And he said, I blew it. I muffed it. I hit it into the net. And he said, and I went on to lose the match. Now, and he said, that put me into a deep, deep inner question. What the heck happened? I knew my body knew, I knew how to hit that shot. I've hit it thousands and thousands of times. What happened? And he said, what was coming across the net was not a tennis ball, but the national championship. Isn't that fabulous? Like that tennis ball represented something he wasn't ready for, apparently. He had ambivalence, he had thoughts, he had doubts, he had, all the stuff that we all carry around with us. And he ended up letting that stuff on the inside ended up interfering with his natural ability to know how to do that. So he talks about the outer game and the inner game. And I'd like to kind of correlate that with what we're talking about here. What you do all day, think of it as the outer game. It's like what you do. You'd see it on a video. If somebody followed you around during the day and just took a video, whatever you did, doesn't matter, whatever that action was, you could think of that as the outer game. It's what we could see on a video. But what's going on in you at the same time? People who work in the corporate world have to produce a lot. There's a lot of producing results and so on. And what I discovered years and years ago is that while people are at work producing something for the world, there's also something being produced in them. Something's happening to you while you're working. People, situations, conflicts, crises, challenges, successes, all the stuff that life is about is happening at work. Like it isn't like you have a life and then you go to work and what happens at work is not life, it's happening. You are happening in both those places. And about a week ago, we're doing our leadership intensive. We have a solo version. It's like 8 2-hour blocks of time over, each week, 2-hour block for 8 sessions. And I'm working with this guy. I don't know, he may be on the call here, but he said it was okay for me to tell the story. And in between the sessions, people are supposed to be practicing what they learned in the last session. And a week ago, he said, John, I got to apologize. He said, there was just too much going on at work this week for me to practice. And I said, what? If you're trying to be, what you're saying is if you're a tennis player, what you're saying is, John, I couldn't practice because there were too many people hitting balls at me across the net. So let's just use the tennis metaphor. Let's say that you wanted to be a better tennis player. You can't become a better tennis player just hitting the ball up against the wall. I know I did it on Monument Avenue in Richmond, Virginia, up against the wall at collegiate school because I was afraid to get in a real tennis match with somebody when I was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. You can't get better. You can have fun, but you can't get better. You need somebody on the other side of the net to challenge you with really tough shots so you can raise your game. So this is the metaphor. Seva is sadhana. Your work is a place where you practice being who you are. And I think this theme is going to come back again. This notion of the subtitle of this series, Unleashing the Human Spirit at Work. That's what this is all about. And what happens at work, meaning what you do all day long, is an opportunity to discover who you are, develop it, express it in a way that contributes to life. I think I'm going to kind of finish it off here, Aggie. There's the outer game, and then there's the inner game, and there's the whole waterline thing that you guys have heard before. I think I want to stop there. We had about 15 minutes or so to kind of have some kind of conversation. This is what I really wish we were face to face. So
Mm.
over to you, Aggie, and let's see where we can go from here.
Well, we're inviting you guys to be posting some questions for John. We have a time to answer a few questions. And I'm going to start with one, John, if that's okay. The continuum that you showed, because a lot of people here in the chat box, when they spoke about where they are and would like to be, as in, you know, they're seeing themselves at, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 and would like to move up to 2, 1 or 2. What would you say to people who are in search of that place? Like, what's it, because especially here in Poland where we are, work is often seen as just something you have to
Yeah.
do, you know, the job, you know, it's a
Yeah.
responsibility. It's a thing, you know, you got to get up and go to work, and you know, it's a thing that you need to be doing. It's the thing you have to do before you can have fun, like you said. We were told
Yeah.
as kids. So what would be your advice to people who are wishing
Boy,
to move up on that scale?
you know, as I said to you guys, this is the state I hate to be in, where I have to be the answer man. You know, I would want to talk to that person and have them talk about how they got their first job and, you know, what's going on inside of them about it. But let me just see if I can say something that might be helpful. It takes courage. The main thing you need is courage. Trust something. Trust what isn't working. Trust it. This isn't working. Okay. Talk to somebody that knows you well and that you trust, and look what would make you happy. I mean, do this exercise where you're looking at a blank board, or just look at your life and say, what do I really enjoy doing? What brings me so much joy that I would be willing to do it, you know, for free? When am I at most alive? And then start looking for clues. I remember years ago, this guy was a photographer, and he worked in a warehouse, and he hated his job. You know, it was like an interruption. He wanted to be a photographer, and he did and it sounds like, you know, this magic story, but he did the LDI, and something came together for him, and he went to the CEO of this company and said, I want to be the company photographer. Mm. And he became the photographer for that, not just that warehouse, but for the whole division. He went all around taking photographs, you know. So maybe there's a way for you to think creatively about something you love to do. Maybe you figure you can't get paid for it. So
it doesn't mean you need to be quitting your jobs tomorrow, just being searching for that within your job. Because the pushback we often get, John, is people say to us, okay, well, this is all great, but now what I love doing is not really gonna, you know, pay my rent.
Yeah.
So how do I tackle that choice?
Sometimes you just, I've taken projects, you know, consulting, training projects, because I needed the money, you know, kids and stuff. So there's no shame in that. I mean, you have to make a living. But I would say press, take a +1 step. Don't do +10. Don't quit your job, but just start looking around. Begin to, you know, just take little steps. See what lights you up. Respond to what lights you up.
And kind of look for that within something that you're doing already.
Yeah. Who do you know that's doing something you think you might want to do? And just go have coffee, so to speak. Have a Zoom with them. Do something.
Yeah, these days. So Isa says, will you be successful at work if it's a profession and not a vocation or a mission? Can you have your cake and eat it?
Sure. I mean,
you can be successful at any level, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can be joyful as a anywhere.
Yeah.
As long as there's no delta, as long as there's no gap between what, I mean, usually you'll probably have some guilt, or if you're a 3, if you're a 4 or 5, right? You may have a voice saying, oh, you know, you really shouldn't be goofing off like this, or something like, well, maybe. But think about it. Take it on for yourself. Is this the level of engagement that I would really like to have? I got to tell you something. Years ago, I was doing a consulting project for Polaroid, okay, back in the day. And I was interviewing a bunch of these people, and they were mostly middle-aged women in this factory, and they were making Polaroid cameras. So they were these assembly line, these things were coming down. I thought about the I Love Lucy, you know, TV show. And these women were sitting up on these high stools with these camera chassis going by, and the woman would pick up a chassis, put the same screw in the same hole, like that, 8 hours a day. And I walked up to them. There's a bunch of these women sitting there, and they introduced me, and he's a consultant, you know, coming in to help us. And I said, wow, how in the world do you do this all day long? And this woman looks at me and she says, let me ask you a few questions. And she's doing all this without even looking at the thing, right? She says, can you think about whatever you want to think about all day long? And I said, she said, uh-huh. She said, can you talk about whatever you want to talk about all day long? And I went, and she said, well, girls, can we do both of those? And they said, yeah, why do you think we're here? We're not here to make these cameras. We're here because we really enjoy being together. So they had found, kind of like Cheers, they had found a way to create a sense of community. And this was just something they did with their hands that gave their hearts and their minds something to do with each other. And that's a kind of a different example.
Mike
great
says,
story.
Yeah.
Mike, great story, Polaroid. Yeah.
So Mike says the ancient theologians suggested that the glory of God is a human being fully alive.
That's it.
Are there some concrete things that a person can do to be fully alive in his or her work? Comments on that, and I'd be happy to welcome any comments on that from everybody else in the chat.
I would say, what do you guys do? What do you all do out there? What have you done that has helped you be alive? I mean, it really varies. It's not one size fits all. It's like, I love walking in the woods. I love doing this. This makes me alive. I mean, I'm 80 years old and I feel like I'm 25. I mean, I'm not slowing down. I'm going faster and faster and faster. So find that. Find what makes you feel alive, and then just go. Put your energy into it if you can, possibly can. Make a +1 step. Not a big one. Make a +1 step. So here's Adrian says, conducting philosophy sessions. I'm telling you, teaching, these people on this network here, Dorota, Aggie, these people on the team, you give them a magic marker in a room full of people and they will light up that room like you can't believe. I mean, they come alive and the room comes alive. It's just magic. I'm telling you.
What if you don't know what makes you happy or what can make you happy?
Well, it's really hard for me not to start a sales pitch. Right. I'm really working hard. You guys on my team, you know how hard this is for me.
Well, what if we weren't to start a sales pitch, but just say,
I'm thinking about the 5, Aggie, I'm thinking about the 5 questions. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is the book, which is coming out soon. So one thing you should do is buy the book. Okay. You can pre-order if there's some kind of a thing at the end of this, I think, where you can pre-order.
So much for not having a sales pitch.
Well, I'm just going to say, I'm going to put on my hat now and say, this is something you might want to do some good reading. And this is an option. And it's based on my concept of the 5 questions that change everything. And what I'm saying is these are 5 questions that change everything, except the one thing that never needs to change. You don't need to change yourself. You need to come home to yourself. This changes everything. So people go, what are the 5 questions? Okay. What's confronting me? Like, we use the metaphor of the tiger. We may do some of this later. Like what's confronting me? I got a job I don't like. I've got this, I've got that, got these other things in my life. What's confronting me is this next meeting, this next phone call, this chapter in my life, this person I'm living with, this job I have. It can be a big thing or a little thing. What's confronting me? And being just really honest about that. Second, what am I bringing to this encounter? If I turn to face this tiger, what am I bringing? What are my hopes? What are my fears? What's the conversation I'm having? What's my history with this kind of person or this kind of, what do I typically do? And what's the conversation I'm having about the situation that makes it a tiger for me, that makes it somehow challenging? What's the formula that scares me? What am I thinking? Question number 3, what's been running me? If I tell the truth, what's been my default? I wake up in the morning, go out the door. I remember years and years ago, this executive from a big American insurance company was doing the solo program with us. And he said, John, I got to tell you, what I'm realizing right now is I get up in the morning. It's a true story. I open my chest, I take my heart out, I put it on the dresser, and I beat it until it's numb. I put it back in my chest, zip it up, and I go to work. Actual quote. And his job was to come alive again, find ways to get his heart beating again. So as soon as you're honest with yourself about what your default is, what's been running me, how have I been on automatic, which is probably pretty good given where you are, but what's missing? The third question is, what calls me? Isn't that interesting? What calls me in two directions? What's calling out? What natural gifts do you have? What are my charisms that you're just naturally good at? There's nothing you have to think about. You walk in a room, these gifts come into the room. So what's calling out from inside to find expression in the world? My kids, they're all into the arts. They're all into music and the arts. Emma's a singer, dancer, actress in Paris, and my son Asa, piano and trombone, and my son Jay, rock guitar, and my middle son is a hip hop rapper with 8 CDs. I mean, they understand. An artist understands this. An artist has something moving inside of them, right, Lisa? Something is moving inside of them, and then what's moving in them it wants to find expression. It's yearning to be made manifest. And so whatever the talents are, sculptor, dancing, painter, singer, whatever, actor, whatever it is, that intention gets translated into action so it can be experienced in the world. So what calls out from inside? And the second question is, what calls you from outside? What's a difference that you would like to make in the world if you could? When you walk in a room, seriously. And then finally, the last question is, what will unleash me? Like if I were to be free, if I could, and we see this all the time, that people are a raging river of energy and creativity and life force, but because of this and this and this and this, and their own stuff, the region, the culture, sometimes it's religion, sometimes it's family stuff, boom, 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 boom. It gets smaller and smaller until what comes out the other end is like a little trickle of water. So these 5 questions, if you take on these 5 questions, they've been known to help people like put themselves into action. So as we go forward with this, maybe we'll do some more with the 5 questions, but for sure the book would be a way to go. So what do we got, Aggie? About 2 or 3 more minutes, or?
Well, we have about 5 minutes left until we close. So I do want to pick that one more question and just talk about this for about a minute, okay? And it's about work-life balance that somebody asked here. I think a lot of companies are now focusing or refocusing on the concept of a work-life balance and paying more attention to, and often using the work-life balance as a phony concept to, promote employer branding or whatnot. So I guess my question is, how does work-life balance compare to, being at a 1 or a 2 where your work as mission or a vocation? And what does that mean?
I spend a lot of time with executives, senior executives, and I think in general they would like people to be moving toward the upper levels there, but they quite often don't have policies or leadership ways that actually make that possible, because people look up to find out what's really important, and they don't see the people above them necessarily having great work-life balance. And so you can do training programs and bring in yoga teachers and have fitness classes and do whatever, nutrition and all this kind of stuff. But if the culture of the company isn't, if the management board isn't seriously committed to finding ways to help people balance that out, it just isn't going to happen. And so when I asked earlier who wins in the thing between life and work, how many times have you? It's 5 o'clock or and you're tired, you want to go home, and your boss or somebody comes in and says, hey, we got this thing, it's got to get out the door, and so on. You know, I'm telling you, you can do that. And after a while, your body, your mind, your spirit is going to say, time out. I mean, how many times have we seen that? People come to our programs, they're exhausted, their spirits crushed. So you need to find a company that takes it seriously. And if you can, become a force for that inside your organization.
Something else to emphasize here, and people sometimes find confusing, is that being, you know, having your work as mission or vocation is not necessarily the same thing as being a workaholic. Because when you're a workaholic, that means you have to work. You need to be working. Your work is replacing something else for you. Whereas what we're talking about is choosing to have your work as mission. Right?
I mean, Mother Teresa, obviously, Jesus, Buddha, all the, you know, Lao Tzu, all of the major, Moses, I mean, they all took breaks. I mean, you know, they all wandered off and, you know, into the wilderness and just did nothing, or did next to nothing, or did something that had nothing to do, apparently. They were like rejuvenating themselves. They were refilling, they were filling the tank again. And this is where mindfulness is such a really, really powerful thing. We called it centering back in the day when I was doing it back in the 1970s and 80s. But that's another thing for those of you on this call here. Find a really good mindfulness class or teacher. Find a yoga class, Aikido, some kind of physical activity is just fabulous for this. Because I mean, really, because you take your mind off of the work and you're doing something. Like I've done yoga almost every day of my life. I still to this day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I have a trainer. You all met him at my birthday party. Pavel, he's this Adonis, you know, all the women in my party fell in love with Pavel. He's like 25 years old, and he's going to be in the Ninja Warrior thing here in Poland. He's going to go for it. I mean, he's just a fabulous guy. And he takes me through a workout every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I mean, it's like 30, 45 minutes of high intensity interval training. I love it. It has nothing to do with my work. And yet it's something that is absolutely precious to me, keeping my sanity here.
And mindfulness will help you discover these moments at work that you enjoy. You know, if you're having, some of you said, how do we discover these moments of work that we enjoy? You know, practicing mindfulness will be so helpful with that as well. So
be fabulous. And listen, I know we have to go, Aggie, but I've not done this before. It's my second webinar ever in my whole life, and so I may be doing things that you're not supposed to do. But I would say if you found this helpful, tell your friends. You know, it's kind of like, I'd love to see a kind of a little organic, little international community that kind of gets together every couple of weeks to, you know, we're all like kindred spirits. We're all just trying to, like my pop said, son, we're all just trying to get to the post office. So I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're doing this bi-weekly. So 2 weeks from today on Wednesday, again, Wednesday night, we're doing a webinar. It's going to be October 20th, and it's going to be episode number 3. This is better than Netflix, you got to say. And the title of that 3rd episode is The Secret of Self-Mastery. So we're hoping,
kind of like some of what we were talking about right here at the end.
Yep. So please join us, be there. Also invite your friends, let the world know that we're doing this. And just before you go, we have one little request for everyone. If you could just take a second, because we're wanting to improve each webinar. So if you can just, you know, put down 3 words of feedback in the chat box before you go about how this experience was for you, that would be wonderful, and that would help us with the next webinar. So thank you all very much. Yes, John. We
want this to be something that you just can't wait. Every 2 weeks, you just can't wait to, you know, be in this little group here. Yep. So help us do that. Help us make it meaningful.
Yep. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Aggie. Thank you, team. Everybody, good night. I don't know how to hang up in the military. We'd say over and out. So over and out.